Hello guys and gals, and this is part 7 of Phantasmagoria by Julia Bruce. In the last episode, we talked about, giants for one, but first of all we talked about Sasquatch, Yeti and Sasquatch. Then we talked about giants, ogres and trolls, monstrous women, and men of wood and forest. Now we are ready for horned and hooved creatures. We are just going to look here. Again, I don't know what you guys want me to do about these maps, but I will read the things here. Fantastic horses take many forms in the world's myths and folklore. There are Pegasus, the winged horse of the ancient Greeks, and there is the pure, white, innocent unicorn of medieval belief, whose horn could neutralize poison. Ireland, Scotland, and Scandinavia have their demonic water horses who whisk the unwary away on their backs. The wild centaurs of Greek and Roman myths are unpredictable beasts, half man, half horse, and prone to violent outbursts, though some are wise and have the gift of prophecy. Other human-beast hybrids that feature in Greek and Roman tales include the fearsome man-bull, the Minotaur, the satyrs, and cloven hooves and horns. In the language of symbols, the animal part represents the fiercer and wilder side of human nature. So let's get this underway. We're probably going to talk about unicorns first. Yeah, here we go. Unicorns. Okay. Here we go. It says, magical powers of a unicorn's horn. The horn of the unicorn is supposed to have magical properties, including the power to heal, cure and protect against disease, whiten teeth, raise the dead, detect poison, purify water. It says left. Unlike all other fantastic beasts, the unicorn has no dark side. It is good, selfless, and beautiful, and cannot be captured by force, but only by gentleness. Okay. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it says, the beautiful and magical unicorn is a mythical horse with a single spiral horn growing from its forehead. Unicorns of Japan and China are gentle creatures, but beware the Kir of Tibet. This unicorn has a vicious temper. Okay, so let's get this underway. Over 2,000 years ago, an Egyptian scholar wrote the first known description of a unicorn. According to him, it was a very colorful animal that looked like a large wild ass, donkey, with long red, white, and black, with a long red, white, and black horn, a purple head, and blue eyes. Quite a combination. This unicorn was very fierce and thought nothing of attacking elephants. The Roman writer Pliny the Elder said the unicorn was like a horse with elephant's feet and a deer's head. Marco Polo, a medieval adventurer who traveled from Italy to China, saw many weird and wonderful things along the way, described a very ugly unicorn with elephant's feet, a boar's head, a single black horn, and a habit of wallowing in mud. This was almost certainly a rhinoceros. Very much so. Okay. The traditional image of a unicorn is of a pure white horse-like creature with a lion's tail, cloven hooves, and a curled white beard and a long spiral horn. This understanding of unicorns probably began when Bible stories were mixed with other tales about one-horned beasts. In the tales that were created from this blend, the unicorn is a shy, wild animal that lives in the forest. It can only be captured when a pure and beautiful maiden lures it from hiding. The unicorn will rest its head on the girl's lap and go to sleep, from that moment becoming tame. Now let's talk about the alicorn. Unicorn horn, which was given the name alicorn, was one of the rarest and most expensive materials in the world in medieval times, worth many times its weight in gold. Alicorns were given a gift between kings and queens. As gifts between kings and queens and the wealthy, especially people with enemies who might want to kill them. These people made cups out of them to drink from. An alicorn as alicorns were said to have the power to neutralize any poison. All of the items that were once thought to be made of alicorn are now known to be made of the long spiral tusk of a narwhal, a small whale that lives in the northern part of the Atlantic Ocean. Unicorns of the East. China and Japan have their own unicorns. The Qilin of China was first mentioned in stories 5,000 years ago when it sprang up from the Yellow River to appear before a sage, a very wise man. The Qilin has a deer's body, a lion's head, and a single curved horn, and is covered in green scales. It is very pure and has a perfect balance of yin and yang, two opposite natural forces, and combines all the elements earth, fire, water, wood, and metal. To see a Qilin is a good omen, but they appear very rarely and only to wise and good people, or at the birth or death of someone very important. The Qilin is the most powerful creature in Chinese mythology after the dragon and the phoenix. Despite the unicorn's power, it is extremely gentle. It can walk on grass without crushing it and will avoid stepping on insects for fear of killing them. In Japan, the unicorn is called the Kirin, and to see one is a sign of good luck. The Kirin can tell the truth from lies. It punishes the wicked by running them through with its horn, but rewards those who are good by protecting them and granting them good luck. Not quite so gentle is the Po of Mongolia. This is a fierce creature with claws, sharp fangs, and a long horn, and a black tail. It preys on leopards and tigers and has a terrible howl. In mountainous Tibet lurk the Seru, the Supu, and the Kir. Little is known of these unicorns except that they are hostile and should never be approached. And this says that it is a sculpture of a Qilin from the Summer Palace of Beijing, China. It sports two horns. It does indeed. Okay, let's move on to Pegasus. We read a little bit about Pegasus already, but let's continue on. Pegasus. Pegasus is one of the most beautiful creatures in the myths of ancient Greeks. This gentle giant, winged horse is also the only fantastic creature in Greek mythology that's wholly good. Two Greek heroes, Perseus and Bellerophon, rode Pegasus, and he also served Zeus, the king of the gods. Okay, let's read about this fantastical fact here. It says, Odin, the chief of the Norse gods, has a magical eight-legged horse called Sleipnir, who could gallop faster than any other creature over land, sea, or through the air. That's right. I was aware of that. Okay, so let's go over the story of Pegasus here. But first, let's read about the Chimera. Just like out nowhere. Bellerophon, astride Pegasus, swoops down on the Chimera, a terrifying female monster. Yep. Okay, it says here, the Chimera was a terrifying fire-breathing monster with the head and body of a lion, a goat's head sprouting from her back, and a living, writhing serpent for a tail. No one had been able to defeat the monster, as they could not get close enough without being seared by her fiery breath. But on Pegasus's back, Bellerophon could fly out of range and still aim his spear down at her. The metal tip of the spear entered her throat and melted in the heat there, choking her to death. Yay. Okay. The story of Pegasus. When the Greek hero Perseus slew the vile Gorgon Medusa, see page 68, a winged horse Pegasus sprung from her blood as it spurted from her severed neck into the ground. Pegasus served Perseus until the day Perseus died. Then he was caught by the goddess Athene and sent to the home of the Muses. These 9 muses of the arts and sciences relied on a magical spring of water to give them inspiration, but the spring had dried up. When Pegasus stamped his hoof, a new source of water called the Hippocrene spring emerged from the ground. Pegasus next served the hero Bellerophon, a brave warrior sent by King Iobates to kill the Chimera, a hideous beast laying waste to the country. Bellerophon prayed to Athena for help, and she gave him a golden bridle. The next day, Bellerophon found Pegasus drinking at a spring, and the magical horse allowed Bellerophon to put the bridle on him and ride him. Mounted on Pegasus, Bellerophon easily defeated the Chimera, soaring down upon it and thrusting a spear down its throat, killing it instantly. King Iobates gave Bellerophon his daughter in marriage, but this was not enough for proud Bellerophon. He thought he could fly on Pegasus up to the top of Mount Olympus, to the home of the gods, and become one of them. So he set out, leaving his wife behind. Zeus, the king of the gods, decided to punish him for such imprudence, and sent a stinging gadfly to attack Pegasus. Oh, that poor horse. When the fly stung him, Pegasus bucked and reared in pain, throwing Bellerophon down to earth. Bellerophon didn't die, but was blinded and crippled and doomed to wander aimlessly in the wilderness for the rest of his life. Zeus kept Pegasus to carry his thunderbolts for him, and Pegasus was also ridden by the goddess of the dawn, Eos. Eventually, Pegasus took a mate, and their offspring began a race of winged horses. On the last day of his life, Zeus honored Pegasus by turning him into a constellation of stars in the night sky. As he flew up to the heavens, a single feather from one of his wings fell to earth near the city of Tarsus. And this says, Pegasus was the magical steed of Greek heroes Bellerophon and Perseus, and served both faithfully. Okay, let's move on to water horses. Wow, that's kind of shocking. Okay, water horses. If you see a bewitching horse on the banks of a river or lake, or if a horse seems to be calling your name, think twice before you go anywhere near it. It could be a mischievous shape-shifting fairy that likes nothing better than to lure you onto its back and take you on a breakneck ride. There's no telling where you might end up. So, it says here, water horses feature in the folk story of many northern European countries. They go by different names in different places, and some are more dangerous than others. Anyone rash enough to agree to ride on an Irish puka, oh, that sounds like a challenge. Anytime I think Irish, I think of Jacksepticeye. I can't help it. Anyways, it says, anyone rash enough to agree to ride on an Irish puka could be sure they're in for a wild ride. But the Scottish Kelpie is even more dangerous. Is an even more dangerous proposition. Anyone unfortunate enough to come across a Kelpie is unlikely to survive unscathed. It says here, there's that picture. It says a mischievous puka will take the unwaried rider on a wild ride that usually ends up in a severe drenching. Okay, well that's not too bad, I guess. Okay, now let's read about the puka. It says the puka of Ireland often appears as a restless or mischievous horse, sleek and black, with a flowing mane and tail and yellow eyes. He will call anyone who offends him to come and ride with him. If they refuse, he will go on a destructive rampage, storming across the countryside, tearing through hedges, and demolishing gates and fences. The puka might dive into water and give his rider a drenching, or throw him into a muddy ditch. Some say there is an even darker side to the puka. When he haunts wild, watery places, he can be very dangerous, especially the children, if they are tempted to ride him. He is likely to carry them off over a cliff and kill them. The puka is a wily shapeshifter and will sometimes appear as a goat, dog, goblin, or even an eagle rather than a horse. The puka can, however, be helpful to those in need. He has been known to work in the fields for poor farmers and even to help with chores around the house. Well, that's nice of the puka. Let's read about the Kelpie now. Like the puka, the Kelpie is a shapeshifter that usually appears as a wild horse. This evil fairy, which haunts the rivers and streams of Scotland and is often seen draped in dank waterweed, lures the unwary onto its back, then dives into the nearest water where it will drown and devour its victim. The Kelpie is jet black and occasionally white, with water dripping constantly from its mane and tail. Its skin is deathly cold to the touch. Kelpies are creatures of fresh and running water, so it is possible to escape from one by crossing a body of still or stagnant water, such as a muddy puddle. In human form, Kelpies are often ugly and squat, with pointy ears, big teeth, and seaweed for hair. They can make themselves handsome, but they can never get rid of all the seaweed in their hair. A similar phantom is the Usagi? We'll say it's Usagi. I know I'm probably wrong. Ucj, which makes its home in saltwater lochs. lakes and in the sea around Ireland and Scotland. It appears as an ugly, shaggy colt. If anyone touches and each usagi, their hands will stick to its hide so they cannot let go, and they will then be dragged helplessly into the water. The each usagi eats both humans and animals, tearing their bodies apart, but always leaving the liver untouched. That is a really interesting feature. It says a kelpie emerges menacingly from the depths of its watery lair, ready to seek out its next unfortunate victim. Okay. Northern water horses. Let's see what this is about. There are also tales of water horses in Scandinavia and the Shetland Islands of Scotland. The nicker of Scandinavia has hooves that face backwards, can also appear as a boy, a centaur, or a green-bearded old man. In this human form, knickers, I'm not swearing here, I promise, it's spelled Nickur. In human form, knickers sometimes fall in love with mortal women. They can be found in any watery place and like to be left alone to make music. So be careful not to disturb one, or it will drown you without hesitation. Fishermen in the far north always keep a knife made of iron at the bottom of the boat, a weapon that is known to ward off knickers. That's what you call sneakers. You sometimes call them knickers, right? Maybe I'm thinking sneakers. Knickerbockers. No, I'm thinking knickerbockers. That's it. In Shetland, the Nugal, N-E-U-G-L-E, Nugal, lives in the water and is terrified of fire. It looks like a pretty gray pony with a green mane and wheel-shaped tail arching over its back. Anyone who dares to ride it will get dragged beneath the waters, which will light up with blue flames as the Nirgal slides below them. Oh, wow. Okay, next we have the Minotaur. The Minotaur. Okay, it says here. Okay, well, there we have a picture. Theseus slays the Minotaur. In Greek mythology of Theseus and the Minotaur has everything: a brave and handsome hero, a clever and beautiful heroine, a terrifying monster, love, action, horror, betrayal, and strange love affair between a queen and a bull. Okay, this is going to get a little bit, okay. Let's just say that we'll read about the sacred bulls first. Sacred bulls. Says left, the magnificent Apis, shown here on an ancient limestone tablet, was a bull god worshipped in ancient Egypt. Okay. Hopefully I don't need to censor any of this out. Anyways. It says, bulls are strong, impressive, and powerful beasts, so it's not surprising that they crop up in many myths and legends. In Islamic myth, Kujata is a colossal bull with 4,000 eyes, ears, noses, and legs. It has an enormous ruby on its back, on top of which stands an angel, supporting the world on its shoulders. In the Zoroastrian religion of ancient Persia, Arshenk, a bull-headed monster like the Minotaur, was the king of demons. He was finally slain by the hero Rustum after a mammoth battle that lasted many days. In the ancient Egyptians, the bull was the most important of all sacred animals. A series of magnificent bullocks were chosen to be the living embodiment of the god Ptah. Each was worshipped and honored until the age of 28, when it was ritually sacrificed, mummified, and buried with great ceremony and mourning. Okay, let's read about Theseus and the Minotaur, and hopefully we can keep this PG. It's Greek mythology, so that probably isn't going to happen. Things started going wrong for Minos, king of Crete, an island in the Mediterranean Sea, when he kept a gift of a beautiful white bull for himself instead of sacrificing it to Poseidon, the god of the sea. Poseidon decided on an unusual punishment for Minos. He made the king's wife fall in love with the bull. The result of this odd love match was that the queen gave birth to a hideous Minotaur, with the body of a man but the head and tail of a bull. Worse than this, the monster acquired a taste for human flesh. Horrified King Minos shut the poor beast away in the labyrinth, a vast maze of tunnels that he had built beneath his palace, but he had to keep the monster fed. Minos solved this problem by demanding that Athens, a city across the sea that owed him a tribute, a payment made for one state to another, should send 7 young men and 7 young women every 9 years to be offered to the Minotaur. They were to be locked in the labyrinth, where they were to wander the tunnels, and they were eventually found and devoured. When it was time for the 3rd shipment of brave young men called... Oh, wait. I lost my place. It was time for the 3rd shipment of young Athenians to Crete. The Prince of Athens, a brave young man called Theseus, decided he would go with them and kill the Minotaur. His father, the king, was worried. He told Theseus that if he succeeded, he must fly white sails on his boat when he returned, so the king would know all was well. If he failed, the ship would fly black sails. When the Athenians arrived in Crete, Theseus met King Minos' daughter Ariadne, who fell in love with Theseus and offered to help him if he promised to take her with him. She gave him a ball of golden twine, explaining that he should tie one end to the gate at the entrance to the labyrinth and unravel it as he made his way through the maze. By following it back again, he would be able to find his way out. She also gave him a sword. The next day, Theseus did exactly as she had instructed him. Deep inside the labyrinth, he found the Minotaur sleeping. As Theseus approached the monstrous beast awoke and charged, but Theseus was ready. He slew the Minotaur with a single sword stroke, followed the thread back to safety, and escaped to his ship with Ariadne and the other Athenians. On the voyage home, they stopped at the Isle of Naxos, where they were... While they were there, something happened between Theseus and Ariadne, and he sailed away without her. The gods wanted to punish Theseus for abandoning Ariadne, so Zeus made him forget his promise to his father King Aegeus, to use the white sails if he succeeded. When the king saw the ship returning with black sails flying, he thought Theseus had failed. Overcome with grief, he hurled himself into the sea. Ever since then, this particular part of the Mediterranean has been known as the Aegean Sea. Okay, and we have time for one more, I think. Let's talk about centaurs. Half human and half horse, the centaur is another fabulous creature that originated in the Greek myth. In the Greek myths. Some centaurs, such as the noble Chiron, were scholarly and wise, but many were wild and unruly, causing havoc wherever they went. It says here, a centaur preparing for battle in the 2003 film about Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. Okay. Centaurs in children's stories. Just like the centaurs in the Greek myths, centaurs in the Harry Potter stories are wild beings that live in the dark depths of the forest. But they are not all as brutal as the centaurs of myth. Some are helpful to humans and wizards. Others are not. They also have the gift of prophecy, being able to foretell the future from looking at the stars. In the Narnia stories by C.S. Lewis, centaurs ally themselves with the sons and daughters of Adam, humans, against the forces of evil. They are wise and brave creatures that are skilled in battlecraft. Most of the centaurs also have the gift of prophecy and are some great healers. They're also great healers. Now, we're also going to do this. Hercules and Nisus. Hercules was one of the greatest Greek heroes. One day, not long after he had married a beautiful girl called Deianira, the centaur Nisus offered to ferry them across the wide river that they had to cross. Nisus set off with Deianira first, but he was not to be trusted and tried to abduct her. Hercules chased after him and shot him with a poisoned arrow. Before he died, Nisus told Deianira to take some of his blood and keep it. If she ever thought Hercules was being unfaithful, the centaur told her the blood would restore his love for her. Deianira kept the phial of blood for many years until she heard rumors that Hercules had fallen in love with another woman. She smeared some of the blood on a shirt and sent it to Hercules. When he put on the shirt, the blood, still tainted by the arrow's blood, burnt into his flesh. In agony, Hercules threw himself onto a fire and died. Nisus got his revenge. It says here, Nisus abducts Deianira and is shot by Hercules, who is unaware that the same arrow will later be the cause of his own death. Let's read about the Sioux Thunder Horse. It says, in the myths of the Lakota Sioux people of North America, thunder horses are bringers of storms. They gallop across the sky carrying on their backs warriors with lightning sticks. The thunder you hear during storms is the pounding of their hooves. Stories about giant horses probably started with the people found fossil bones from the extinct rhinoceros-like animals now known as Brontosaurus, standing over 2 meters, 6.5 feet tall at the shoulder, and at least 4 meters, 13 feet long. These giants had long horse-like faces and flattened horns on their noses. Now, let's read about centaurs, and then we'll probably wrap this video up. It says here, centaurs would definitely not have made good neighbors. These creatures, with the head and chest and arms of a man and the body and legs of a horse, were wild and brutal. They ate raw flesh and were constantly getting drunk, running riot, trampling crops, and attacking anyone who got in their way. They weren't very bright either, though some were cunning and wily. The centaurs lived in great herds on Mount Pelion in the Thessaly region of northeastern Greece. Zeus, the king of the gods, would often get centaurs to do his dirty work, particularly punishing anyone who had annoyed him. This led to a lot of bad feelings between centaurs and humans. On one occasion, a group of centaurs ran amok at a wedding, sparking a massive battle. Not all centaurs were so wild. The centaur Chiron was immortal and one of the wisest beings ever to live, being skilled in hunting, medicine, music, and prophecy. He was so learned that the gods put him in charge of educating some of the greatest Greek heroes, such as Hercules, Jason, and Achilles. Sadly, Chiron got caught up in the conflict between the centaurs and humans at the wedding battle, fighting on the side of the men, and was injured by a poisoned arrow. Because he was immortal, the wound didn't kill him, but the poison meant he would be doomed to a life of agony forever. Zeus took pity on him and allowed him to die afterwards, placing his body in the heavens as the constellation Sagittarius. And that will finish off our reading. We have been reading from... Okay, next we're going to read about satyrs. And then we'll read about dragons. That should be fun. Okay, so we have been reading from Phantasmagoria. It is a book by Julia Bruce, and this was part 7. So, if you like this content, make sure you like and subscribe, and ring the bell so you know when I upload. Also, if you want to support me in any way, all the information will be in the description below. And as always, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.